Dave, maybe I can ask a question here. Again, thinking about the UK context particularly, stats would suggest only about 4% of the UK population are evangelical Christians. And on top of that, I read a survey just this week, only 23% of young adults in the UK even believe that God exists. We've got missionaries coming to the UK from the States, from many countries across the African continent these days, from parts of South Asia and other places too. With all of that in mind, with all of the challenges for the gospel in our own backyard, why is it we should still be concerned as British churches to send where that's appropriate? What would you say in response to that common objection?
That's a great question. And I would say this is the beauty of truly looking to God and laying down your life before him and saying, you lead me by your Spirit. Because the Spirit of Christ wants the strengthening and spreading of the gospel, strengthening the church and spreading the gospel in the UK. And the Spirit of Christ wants the gospel to go to those who've never heard. And in an Acts 13 kind of way, when I think about the church at Antioch, this was a new church. Antioch was by no means 100% Christian or 10% Christian or anything like that. Like, it was very early on in Christianity in Antioch. And yet the Spirit sets apart Paul and Barnabas to go to places where the gospel hasn't gone. But that's two people he set apart. There were a lot of other people the Spirit left in Antioch for the building up of the church in Antioch. And that's why it's one of the reasons why in this cross conference we emphasize both senders and goers, because God is calling many people who are listening right now to make disciples of the nations right there in the UK and to build up the church there. And God is calling people to take the gospel where there are zero Christians, like zero, no followers of Jesus. So yes, there's need in both places for sure. But that's what I love about Romans chapter 15, when Paul is writing. Remember, he's writing the book of Romans from the city of Corinth. When you read like 1 Corinthians and you read about what's going on in Corinth, like, it is a very depraved city. There's so much need for the gospel in Corinth. Yet he's not staying in Corinth. Why? Because there's a church in Corinth that is preaching the gospel, and he is zealous, he says in Romans 15, to see Jesus preach where he's not known, where he's not been heard. And it's interesting. He even tells people at different points to stay in reach places. I think about Paul telling Timothy to stay in Ephesus and to shepherd the church there, even as he's going to where the gospel's not yet gone. He wants to get to Spain, is what he's saying at the end of Romans. And so it's never an either or, either the UK or unreached people around the world. No, it's yes, let's reach people with the gospel right here. And as long as the Spirit leads you to stay in UK, then do that. But always be open. He's sending people from the UK. There's no question. Even I think about as soon as the gospel is known among a people group, a church has begun there, he's going to be sending out people to keep pressing it on. That's the impulse of the New Testament. Keep pressing on to where the gospel hasn't gone. The problem is we've not done that. And I would actually say, the last thing I would say along these lines is, this is part of the health of a church. A healthy biblical church is sending missionaries. If we are really zealous about the health of the church in the UK, then we should be zealous about the church sending missionaries from the UK to places where the gospel hasn't gone. Like that's part of the health of a church, is sending out missionaries in an Acts 13, 1-3 kind of way. And so for all those reasons, just keep pressing into the Spirit and never make an either or what God has designed to be a both and. He wants the gospel to spread, the church to be strengthened in UK. And he wants the gospel to go where it's never been heard before. And he's going to call some people to stay and work for the spread of the gospel in UK as they send others. And he's going to call some people to go. And with 3 billion people and over 7,000 people groups who've never heard the gospel, I'm convinced he's calling many more to go.
One of the great themes of the cross conference has been the relationship between the local church and global mission. Just want to say, you want to say a bit more now about why it's so important for the guys listening in this evening to be rooted in a local church, and if they are to go, why it's important they get involved in the church in the place they go to, or get involved in seeing churches established in the place they might go to if the church is not yet there.
Yeah, so there's no question. You look on the page of the New Testament, and the local church is God's plan for the fulfillment, accomplishment of the Great Commission. It's disciples made, and I just think about the summary of what Paul and Barnabas were doing in that first missionary journey when you get to the end of Acts chapter 14. And in all these places they go back where disciples have been made, they've been gathered together into churches where there are elders, pastors shepherding those churches. Like that is these outposts of God's kingdom that are spread all over. That's what we want to see spread all over the nation. So that's why we're very intentional, especially in cross conference, even the talk that I did, to say, okay, this is not a decision you make on your own. Again, going back to Acts chapter 13, we need to be in a local church where we're under the leadership of good, godly pastors, and where we are sent out from a church with the support of a church, and with the biblical training and disciple making that happens in a local church. So we're sent out from churches, and as we go, that's what we're going to do. We're not going just to share the gospel. Obviously, that is primary. That's fundamentally what we're doing, and make disciples. But we want to gather those disciples together into churches and see elders, pastors for those churches in such a way that they are then able to send missionaries, as we've talked about. So we want to see these outposts of the kingdom everywhere. So we're leaving one outpost to go plant other outposts of the kingdom. And in the process, we want to be both connected to the church that sent us and an integral part of the church where we are going. Now, initially, as we go to a place where there is no church, then we are the church, and maybe it's a small team that is operating as the church in that place. But as Lord willing, people come to know Christ and the church begins to grow, then we want to strengthen the church there. We can never disconnect missions at any point from the local church, whether in the sending or the going and the work that's happening on the ground.